Hiyo everybody, this is IcicleFerret and we are once again back playing Planet Zoo. And today we are building a zoo with animals from North America. So we have some already set up. The last time I did this I started from scratch, but North America has a few more animals than South America. So starting our zoo here, we have our North American bison. And we have our pronghorn antelope. Let's get our good side. There we go. So these guys are native to the American West, and the American bison is one of the largest ungulates on the planet. They used to run in herds of thousands of individuals, but since human expansion into their territory has cut down a lot on their space and their population, they were hunted for meat and for clothing and for trophy hunters. Their range is actually much smaller now, and there are fewer in the wild, but they're still doing pretty well for themselves, all things considered. The pronghorn antelope is a small species of deer that is it's common more in the western West. I know these guys used to be pretty much anywhere from like the Mississippi all the way over to the Rockies, and these guys are more kind of in the mountain areas. You will still find them in the plains though, so they've got quite a range on them. And then over here we have the timber wolf, which, fun fact, I actually thought the timber wolf and the gray wolf were the same thing, but apparently the timber wolf and the gray wolf are actually not the same species. Last I checked, like, the gray wolf was a subspecies of timber wolf, but I've always been using them interchangeably, and I do believe that they do interbreed naturally in the wild, so maybe I'm wrong about that. Then over here we have our grizzly bears, which one of the largest bear species on the planet. They are not quite as common as their smaller cousins, the black bears, and their natural ranges are a little threatened by human activities, just natural loss of habitat, and they reproduce relatively slowly compared to some other animals too. And I have set up over here, I've got some little guys. I have the giant desert hairy scorpion. You find this guy out in the American and the Mexican desert. And the Mexican red-kneed tarantula. Now I probably have to go back and include this guy in my South American playthrough because Mexico is technically Central America, and I was including Central American animals in my South America zoo. But for now, he's here in North America. I mean, I guess I consider Mexico mostly North American, but arguments can be made that it's Central American. But we have these two guys. We also have room in here for another North American native. Excuse me, and in here I have just placed the Gila monster. She's currently hiding. He's currently hiding. You can't get a good look at him. But Gila monster is one of, I think, one of only a handful of poisonous lizards. Most lizards actually don't have poison. It's something almost strictly limited to snakes, but Gila monsters are poisonous. And fun fact, there's actually a really old black and white film, like Attack of the Giant Gila Monster or something. And because Gila monsters are poisonous, they actually used a related species called the Mexican beaded lizard instead of a Gila monster. So every time they point out and they say, "Hey, it's a Gila monster," they're actually pointing at a Mexican beaded lizard. Next up over here, we're going to add the western diamondback snake. And the western diamondbacks they're pretty common in the US actually. Their range is pretty much central and western the United States. They are more common in the more arid regions, but you will find these rattlesnakes quite commonly. They do exist in southern Illinois, which is my home state. And places like, I know it's dark and you can't see right now, but he's there, I promise, she's there. I keep getting their genders wrong. You will find them in southern areas, and you will also find them in very hot, dry, deserty areas. So they get around, and they're probably are considered to be subspecies somewhere out there. A lot of people like to make subspecies out of things just because they can get their name on it. Or they can get money for preservation of a subspecies, even though it's exactly the same as another species, but whatever, more power to them. And then over here I have added a green iguana. Now these guys are not really native to North America. They were introduced, and there is a population of them living in Florida and I believe Georgia. I know Florida for sure, I'm not sure about Georgia. But yeah, they just absolutely love it down in Florida, and they're doing just fine down there. More power to them. Now this kind of like the Mexican red-kneed tarantula. These guys they are naturally found in Mexico and the Caribbean islands, which is kind of North America, so whether you want to call this an invasive species or not, that's up to you. They're technically invasive in Florida, but otherwise they're fine. They live in Mexico, so they're North American. There are a lot of other invasive lizards, particularly in the Florida area, that don't have representation here in Planet Zoo. You have things like the Burmese python, African rock python. You have various other types of lizards and geckos that are from Africa or from China that also live down there, and a lot of those came from reptile breeders whose houses were destroyed in natural disasters. So they just escaped and they have flourished there. In the case of the Burmese python, they're so big that they're actually a danger to the other apex predator in the region, which is the American alligator. And there's really nothing that can be done to get rid of them. They're trying to manage the populations and keep down in the ones that they can. But with so few species of natural predators of snake eggs in the area, they're having difficulty doing that. Ooh, I have a present. Alright, now we're going to add some other species to this list. I have a nice area here in the center already planned out for them. So the first of these other North American species that we're adding is actually the zebra from Africa. He's actually kind of happy with his area. He does need some enrichment, so we'll give him some of that. So zebras are actually, let me start over. So there are actually wild zebras in North America. In the state of California, there used to be a private collection that had zebras, but the place fell into disrepair after the owner of the estate passed away, and they weren't able to sell off all of his menagerie. So what they decided that they would do, because they couldn't afford to keep all the animals and they couldn't afford to sell and to move them and all of that, is they just opened up the gates of their pens and let them run around free on the grounds of this estate. And the zebras have been doing pretty well for themselves, just like horses have adapted to North America. Horses aren't native to North America, by the way, in case you didn't know that. The zebra adapted just as well. and the North American climate, a little colder than what they're used to in Africa. Still wasn't anything that they couldn't handle, and especially in California, it's a lot warmer over there than it is in Illinois, where I live. But yeah, so there are just wild zebra running around in California, and the people are fine with it. You know, they're not really hurting anything out there. Just kind of like wild horses aren't really hurting anything in the ranges that they exist. So yeah, if you go for a drive through California, ask somebody where you can find the zebra, and they may be able to tell you. Alright, so the next animal we have here is the Nile Monitor, which this guy's not very happy right now because his train doesn't fit him. So let me fix that real quick. Alright, so where was I? The Nile Monitor has actually been introduced, again in Florida, of all places. And I believe it's Florida. If it's not, I'll put something up on the screen to let you know that it's not Florida. But these guys, kind of like the snakes and the other things that are loose in Florida, they were most likely pets or breeding stock from breeders and escaped and just made themselves at home. Which I actually do need to provide windows for my guests to be able to see these guys. Which apparently I can't do when there's water there. Perfect. Alright. And this guy, you're not supposed to be there. You're supposed to be over here. And this guy here, the Gemsbok, beautiful majestic beast that he is, they were introduced into Texas as a conservation measure. So these guys are native to Africa, but the Texas desert is very similar to their natural environment. So they were consciously released in Texas to start up a breeding population and improve their numbers. And so far it seems to be working. They're actually thriving in their new environment. They're doing pretty good there. And yeah, so we now have wild Gemsbok in North America because of that. And there's one more species that I want to add if I can find it real quick. Okay, and the final new animal is the Warthog. Come on, Warthog. These guys are in the... I'll have to do some research because I forgot exactly where they are. But I know that there were some Warthogs that got out, I think in Texas again. And they just made themselves at home. And they're just another species of pig that we have to worry about because feral hogs are a big problem in America. But not warthogs. Okay. Alright, so I pressed the wrong button. So we got Ali back in here again, and we need to give this guy some shelter. So I'll get them set up. Alright, so I believe this is it, and of course we're coming into nighttime where you guys won't be able to see what's going on. But as far as the North American animals available in Planet Zoo, this has it covered. We have the American bison, the pronghorn antelope, timber wolf, the grizzly bear, the zebra, warthog, Gemsbok, the Nile Monitor, and then that does it as far as exhibits, habitat species go. Now we have the exhibit species. We have green iguanas, Gila monsters, western diamondback rattlesnakes, Mexican red-kneed tarantulas, and the giant desert hairy scorpion. There are plenty of other animals in North America that aren't available in the base game of Planet Zoo. There are several animals in the DLC, their Arctic expansion pack, that I actually don't have because I can't justify spending the money on it. But in that pack you have polar bears, you have caribou, you have doll sheep, and there was one more that I'm forgetting about. But those are all in North America as well. And the as far as other native wildlife goes, we have deer such as the white-tailed deer. There's also the mule deer. We have the moose. We have the elk. North American elk, I guess, are called wapiti over in Europe. So depending on where you are, it may make more sense to you if I say wapiti. And we also have a lot of cats for predators. There are bobcats and lynx. There are cougars. We actually do have jaguars in North America as well. With the milder winters that we've been having, they've been stretching their habitat farther and farther north now, and they've actually been sighted in Texas. We have, as far as native species go, there are the North American alligator. You have things like the river otter, the Pacific, what's it called, the Pacific otter or something, the Pacific sea otter, I think is what it is. All sorts of things like, my favorite family of animals, the weasels. You have badgers, wolverines, martens. I mean, I don't know why you would put a marten in the zoo. Maybe as an exhibit species. But there are also things that are very popular in zoos across the ocean, like the raccoon. I have never seen a raccoon in a zoo here in North America, but I guess they are super popular in zoos overseas. So we could have raccoons for our zoos. That'd be kind of cool. They already have red pandas, and raccoons are about the same size. So that would be neat if we could have those. As far as other animals go, you have two different kinds of foxes. There are coyotes. There are different species of wolves that they could consider adding, like the I think it's called the red wolf or the Mexican wolf or something along that line. And just a whole bunch of animals that I think would be really cool to add into Planet Zoo. Then they might get around to it. They may not. We'll see. How much money they can make on the DLCs determines, I think, how many animals that they're going to add to this game. But for right now, that's all she wrote. That's all of the North American animals. So, thank you very much for watching. Stay frosty, my friends, and I will see you next time.